He's been with RTI International for 30 years and leads research in sustainability, including urban, corporate, and environmental sustainability. Please welcome to the stage our first speaker of the evening, Keith Weitz.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Pleasure to be here tonight, and I'm going to be leading off today with talking about sustainability in commerce. That means sustainability in the products, goods, and all the packaging that comes with that. So there's a number of factors that are currently driving a push for sustainability in products, consumer products, and packaging. They sort of range across both consumers as consumers become more aware of the sustainability implications and impacts of different products and packaging on the environment. They are industry-led as industries are responsive to ESG, environment, social governance reporting, and trying to find ways to make their processes, products, packaging more sustainable. It's never a good picture when you have a photo of your product floating around the ocean, as a good example. And then there's the governments. And when we're talking about products, packaging, we consume a lot, and what we consume ultimately ends up in the waste stream. And the federal government plays a role in that, but really where the rubber meets the road on waste management is at the local level. So it's the cities, it's the municipalities that are dealing with that. So a lot of the real government push is on the not only developing federal level policies and programs, but also state, local, regional. A good example of sort of government push right now includes, and I don't know how many of you follow the news, but things like bans on single-use plastics or extended producer responsibility legislation. And extended producer responsibility really means that companies become more of a responsible party in the management of their products and packaging at the end of life. So if I'm consuming a product such as a computer or a tablet, what do I do with that at the end of the life? Do I have a place to take that back? The producers really become more responsible for either having a program to take back their product or paying a fee into current recycling programs and infrastructures. A lot of this has really stemmed from world changes. So many of you may have heard in terms of Asia, China markets, where we used to send a lot of our recyclables, they have changed over time. So you probably put a lot of your recycling into one bin, and through programs that China in particular has initiated over the past number of years, Green Friends, now the National Sword, there has been more stringent requirements on the quality and contamination that goes into those recyclables that we send out. So now we're having to deal with the fact that we have a lot of contamination in our recycling stream and not a lot of valuable product to recover. Some of these problems have stemmed from innovation in packaging and products. So I don't have a good example with me of a package, but there's often new designs that are multi-layer, multi-material packaging that are difficult to recycle. So how do you separate the materials that are composite within a package? What is the market for that material? So these types of innovations have advanced some things, but also have taken us a step back in terms of the recyclability of products and packaging. And we see now that some states and cities are looking towards legislation programs to have a certification of recyclability. So what is a practical way to innovate and move forward? This is not my garage. It's a photo somebody had sent me. And, is this really a practical solution? Probably not. But there are innovations that are currently underway in different material categories: product design, material substitution, bio-based materials. All of these are at different levels of technical readiness. And so a key is what is ready now, what can we deploy now, and looking at the sustainability impacts of those innovations, so we're sure they don't create problems down the road. And really, there's no silver bullet answer for any of this. So we can't necessarily technology our way out of it. It's really a whole host of actors and players, from us as consumers and individuals and households that put things in our recycling and trash bins. It's retailers, it's the product manufacturers, state and local governments, and industry that have to deal with these materials at the end of the day. So we often look at this as an ecosystem of different stakeholders, of different players that are all involved. And that is my talk for today. Thank you.
All right, now it's Q&A time. It's time to get your questions answered about recyclables. That's right, sustainability and packaging and product. Oh, that man's about to charge the stage up here. Also, we'll go over here before this guy shivs me. Excellent. Our first question, and everyone who asks a question tonight will receive a journal. That's right, you get some swag tonight.
Yeah, so you showed us a slide with about 8 differentiated bins that you said is probably not practical. All right, AI plus a good robot arm, what do you think?
I think that's been implemented at a lot of facilities. They're good technologies. They increase the recovery of different materials by maybe 5 or 10%. The problem is having materials in the waste stream that don't have an end market. So we can recover more of the material we want to recover through new technology like robotics, AI-assisted sortation machines, optical sorting machines. It's really, what are we targeting though? So if we're targeting something like a PET bottle that has a high market value, we can increase our recovery rate for those particular materials. But there's a lot of material in the waste stream and recyclable stream that doesn't have an end market. So recyclers are always looking for, where can I find an end market for these yogurt cups or whatever the problematic material, it could be glass. Because for them it's a contamination, and if it's a contamination they have to pay to dispose of it. So the equation is pretty simple. They get a certain amount per ton of material they take in their front door, and whatever they recover and can sell is a revenue. Whatever they have to then dispose is a cost. So they have a contracted price usually on the front end, and the market varies quite dynamically, day to day, week to week, month to month, by material, and then the disposal price continues to rise. So.
Great question there. All right, we've got another question coming here from the back row. Front is, that's right, you. That's right, this isn't TV, I can see you. All right, next question.
So, your slide with all the gauges, everything was on the far left except bioplastics, I think. Excuse me. Where are we going to be in 20 years from now with those gauges, and what's going to be the leading solutions?
That's a good question. It's often hard to predict those, and we have been looking at some of the technologies that have been proposed for almost 20 years now, like gasification, pyrolysis. You may have heard of chemical recycling as sort of the new batch of technologies. And we haven't seen those really take off in the US or really globally to a large extent at this time. And a lot of that isn't that the technology can't work or doesn't work. A lot of it is more the environment that they operate under. So they need to have the right economic conditions. They need to have the right players and contracts lined up to be able to get the feedstock they need and companies to take the product they're producing. And those haven't all aligned just yet. The other thing with sort of technical solutions like that is the feedstock that we're talking about, which is your waste stream, is a mixture of stuff. And it's a mixture of a lot of stuff that can't be technically recycled, such as food waste, other yard trimmings, trash. So it's really a matter of getting those technologies to a state where they can deal with a level of contamination and not mess up the back end product so it's not sellable.
All right, got another question, second row here. Sorry, she beat you to it. Next question.
How scalable is the bacterial recycling for the future?
How scalable? Yeah, I think these are all, it's a similar response. They're all in sort of the early stage technology development. So they're at a lab pilot, in some cases a demo facility level, but we don't really see them out at a commercially operating level. The cost is a big factor compared to other options in the US. But it's also, as I mentioned, having the right feedstock. So how do you get them the right feedstock that works with their process out of the waste? So that may entail some sort of segregation at the household level that we don't currently have, or it may entail some pre-processing of stuff that's already collected, and that's an added cost. So how do we deal with those pre-processing costs, an expensive process technology, and then potentially needing some post-process cleanup of that product so that we can sell it for a revenue.
And our last question on this topic will be coming from your left.
What's up with styrofoam, forever chemical? When I first heard about it as a young person, they said it would be recycled, but it's like a forever chemical. I know Publix takes a few things back as recyclable, but I've also heard that a lot of recyclables are shipped away from the US and then just burned. And so as I get older, I just almost feel depressed that recycling doesn't seem to work. And how do we stop things like styrofoam and start recycling?
Yeah, I think those are exactly the types of factors that have been coming together and into play with products and packaging, and the layers of the onion have been peeled off over time in terms of where this material is going, where is it ultimately ending up. And as I mentioned, we were shipping a lot of it internationally. And once it leaves, it's hard to really determine where it goes from there. You know, we've seen stories where they're using plastics to fill potholes. So, for example, they put a bunch of plastic in a pothole and light it on fire, and it fills the pothole. In Indonesia, they use waste plastic, waste paper to fire tofu cookers. So it's a little bit ubiquitous around the world, and some of that's education, but a lot of it, again, is having a viable end market for these materials, and having the right economic and business environment with which to have better processes. But some of it's on the policy side as well, in terms of what do we dictate as policy for where we can send our material. I know I did some work in Japan, and in Tokyo they have city districts, and those districts had to manage the waste that they produced in their district. They could not send it to another district or another part of the country. And so that forced them to really come up with, how are we going to deal with this material within our district? And you know, at least right now we don't have that. We send a lot of our waste and recyclable material to other states within the US and other countries. So it's a difficult problem for sure. But I think things are moving forward. There's certainly a push and sort of acknowledgement and recognition that things have been stagnant. How do we move that needle? And I think it's something that everybody has to be involved with. You know, us as individuals and consumers, government, industry, you know, all the above.
All right, give it up for Keith Weitz.